this finger out of my hole. I've been walking the road too damn long. I'm a crippled and a riddle with doubt. I need to get the finger out.
Hello everybody and welcome to Get the Finger Out podcast. My name is Darryl, I'm your host, and here we are again for episode 5. How the fuck are you doing? You doing alright? I'm doing good myself. Did you what was last week's podcast? Yes, I done a bit about drinking. I didn't get to do as much as I wanted to do. I keep trying to keep this podcast under an hour because I think that's the perfect length for a podcast. And also, I think my phone would only store so much data, and I'm afraid of having a repeat of what happened in the first few weeks of recording the podcast and something going wrong and having to do the same episode again. So this is the first time doing this episode, fingers crossed. This week, first of all, I'm 6 weeks sober today, and I'm happy and proud, and hopefully every week I'll be able to turn around to you and say, oh, I'm another week sober, so that's good. But this week I won't really be talking about drinking much, but I will probably do another podcast soon in regards to alcohol, because last week I didn't get covering as much ground as I wanted, and I felt a bit rushed. But it's all a work in progress, so it is. This week I've written less shit down, so hopefully I won't have to rush anything at the end. I mean, hopefully at the end there's 15 minutes left or something where I can just ramble and talk shit, because a lot of people turn the podcast off after 45 minutes or something, but I'd like to fill the hour. Anyways, this week, daily objectives. So far, this is episode 5. So far I've set 4 daily objectives. And if you are using this podcast to do as I'm doing and trying to build your life slowly from the ground up, then I have set 4 daily objectives of drinking 2 litres of water a day, making your bed in the morning, meditating for 10 minutes a day, and as of last week, becoming aware of how much time you're spending on your phone by identifying, becoming aware in the moment that you left your phone, or even if you're halfway into a Facebook scroll or watching some porn or playing some games or something, and you just go, hey, fuck, I'm using my phone too much, I'll throw it away or get rid of it. So that hasn't been working out the best for me, so I've been having a bit of a crazy week. Just nothing crazy's happened in general, just my mind has been going fucked up. And I don't know if that's just due to taking a lot on at the minute, or trying to do too much, or if it's just my brain chemistry all balancing out a bit because of the quitting of the devil's nectar. But anyways, I've just had to do shit I didn't want to do in the last week and been annoyed about it, but I've kept it to myself. And I've done well. I've been going to lots of meetings of AA. I've been working on myself. I haven't went to the gym as much as I wanted to. And to be honest, today I haven't done any of the daily objectives. I've only been drinking coffee all day. I have spent a lot of time on the phone today. I haven't even made my fucking bed. But that's okay. At least I'm aware of it. And tomorrow's a new day, where I talked either last week or the week before about framing something and taking the silver lining, taking the goodness from any situation. And the goodness is, I know I'm doing shit today, and I'll maybe get 1 or 2 of those things done today, and then tomorrow is a new day, and blah blah blah. But for next week's daily objective I'm setting myself, and you can too, it's going to be based around growth, and it's going to be a broad one. If you're choosing to do it yourself, it can be something that you choose, but I'm going to talk about that near the end of the podcast. Talk about various hustling ideas that you can maybe do yourself, or ways you can educate yourself, or just things you can do to grow. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. But this week, basically, I ended up getting a job, a minimum wage job, doing something I thought I would enjoy, working in the whole printing of photographs and stuff. But I done 2 hours of the job, and between having a sore back and not seeing myself as really not enjoying myself and realising that I could definitely make the same amount of money just by doing other things, so that's tying in with what my objective is, but I'll talk about it later. So I just walked up to the guy after 2 hours of the job and said, sorry man, I need to leave. I don't want to do this, basically, and don't want to waste any more of your time or mine. And I told him he didn't have to pay me for the 2 hours that I worked. Which in hindsight is quite cheeky, but sure, whatever. I'm going to talk this week a little about anxiety / panic attacks. I'm going to talk about how I've dealt with them in the past and how I deal with anxiety. And moving on, I'm going to talk about ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is something that I'm going to do a ceremony in about, what date's today? So in about 4 or 5 weeks, I'm going to do an ayahuasca ceremony, and that's going to be crazy. So I'll talk about that shortly. So first, I'd just like to say, I hope you're enjoying the podcast as much as I'm enjoying making it. If you'd like to help me, I would be really, really, really happy if you tried to help me and just basically liking the podcast on Apple or Spotify or whatever you use, and more importantly, leaving a comment and just let me know what you think of the podcast. And if you're going to say something bad about it, please don't. Just go and find another podcast. Because apparently in your first 2 weeks of releasing a podcast, you can get your podcast onto Apple's new and noteworthy, and I don't know what the algorithm or whatever way they pick that, but a way to do it is obviously people leaving comments and blah blah blah. So that would help me a lot and help me get to the podcast to more listeners. So yeah, anxiety. Anxiety's something. Hold on, I get a wee sip of coffee. Oh, that's good coffee. Anxiety is a word. I grew up in the 90s and I didn't even have the word anxiety in my vocabulary. If somebody said the word anxiety, when I was very young, I just thought it meant like angry or crazy or something, which are emotions that are, something that can happen due to anxiety. You can get anxious and be angry. I was looking for a word in my vocabulary there and I've lost it. A symptom. Anger can be a symptom of anxiety or craziness or whatever. Or that's what it'll appear on the outside as, And lots of people do deal with anxiety in different ways. I've observed certain people in my life who I thought would never be anxious, because once I learnt what anxiety was a little bit, I thought it was something that made you weak. And somebody who's really angry all the time or something, or very stressed, I used to think, oh fuck, well that person could never get anxious. But now, knowing a lot more, I realise, oh shit, that person's really anxious all the time, and that's why they're angry, or that's why, they're anxious about things not working out, or loss of control, or not doing things the right way and stuff like that there. But I used to have anxiety. Well, I always have anxiety sometimes. That doesn't make sense. That's an oxymoron. I get it. So I grew up in the 90s, right? Okay, I've got to have this structured here. I grew up in the 90s and didn't know what anxiety was. And, I got the internet, and, now on the internet, mental health is talked about a lot, and everybody, it's a fucking buzzword these days. Anxiety's a buzzword. I'd never heard about it. I never thought I felt anxiety, but as I grew up, I realised I've always had anxiety in situations normally when people have authority over me, whether that be a teacher at school or a parent or the police or something like that, like I notice now looking back, you know, if I was a kid and we were doing something we shouldn't be doing at school, whether that be, you know, just breaking the rules in general, or as I got older, you know, maybe smoking dope at school or smoking cigarettes at school, I would always be so scared about getting caught more than anybody else. So I would always be freaking out, and that went on into my later years, even in my late 20s. If a friend was smoking weed or something, and even if I wasn't smoking the weed, I would be fucking freaking out about getting caught. I remember one time I was smoking some weed in a friend's car, and the police, there was no more weed left in the car, but we were stoned, and the police came and knocked the window, and the window went down, and one of my friends started, you know, saying to the police, you know, what right do you have to blah blah blah, and I was petrified. I thought, I'm going to jail, oh, my life's over, you know, all those thoughts. And I still don't know where that's come from, you know. There's probably some point in childhood where I've got caught doing something and freaked out. I remember when I was in the academy, my school, the secondary school. If this reaches anybody in America, I don't know what that is in America, but it's when you're like 13 years old till 18. But everybody started stealing stuff, you know. It just seemed to be the new trend, you know. It started out where someone at school, they gave us these little swipe cards where we would swipe a little box and put in money in the morning, and that money would be in your card, kind of like a debit card, you know. And then you would go to the canteen and you would pay for stuff by swiping. And then one day someone figured out how to put fake money into the machine, because this was way back in the day and the technology was terrible, and someone figured out in my class how to put, he was printing I can't remember if it worked when he put the notes in and it was just a note he printed at the house, because I think that uses infrared and I don't think that would have worked. But I remember someone was using that to pay for stuff in the canteen before that. But somebody figured out a way. That's what it was. It was a fucking straw. Somebody figured out if you put a straw into the machine and then you put £1 in, and then your balance would go up by £1, and then you pull the straw out and your £1 would come back out, and you could just do it as much as you wanted. So people were doing that at school, started getting free stuff doing that. Then everyone just there was a shop called Woolworths in town, and everybody at school, it was fucking crazy, like, would just go to this shop after school. And I think the shop was going out of business. I don't know if it was going out of business because so many people were robbing from it, or if it was just going out of business because, but whatever. By the way, I'm not a thief, but just to clarify that, but everyone was doing it and I always followed the crowd, so fuck it, you know. Please don't think less of me. I was a young boy and I was easily led. But yeah, you know, half the academy, probably shouldn't say this school, it doesn't matter, this is fucking 20 something years ago, would go into the Woolworths after school, and you would all go to the sweeties aisle, which was at the edge or at the end of the store, and there was nobody there, like no staff. They were understaffed, and there's just this aisle of sweets and about 10 students at a time from school. Just look around, nobody's there, and everyone would just fill their blazers with Wham bars and M&Ms and Skittles and fucking everything, you know. I used to freak out so bad, and then I just started doing one small item, but I would make sure to get one small item when I seen someone else grabbing like 10 items. So I always had like a fail-safe in place. So if we did get caught, then I'd be like, well, I only took one thing and I was going to pay for it, I forgot it, you know. But I remember in school, in the canteen, people started stealing stuff there, and one time I put a bottle of BPM into my blazer pocket, and got away with it and felt fucking incredible. And I just started doing it because in my head I was like, I could easily get out of this situation by just saying, you know, I forgot, you know, I put it in my blazer because I needed to lift other stuff, and I was paying for other stuff, but I started stealing a bottle of BPM every day. Apparently it makes your willy small. That's what they said at school, but anyways, it didn't make my willy any smaller. So I was stealing the BPMs, and then one day I was buying a sausage soda and I had a BPM purple in my pocket, and I paid for it, and I was walking free, feeling good, and the next thing I just felt I felt a hand grab my arm, and I turned round and it was the caretaker, and I went, "Hi," and he was like, "Do you want to open your blazer there? Do you want to open that?" And I was like, "Oh fuck," and I knew I was busted, and then I just opened it, and he just like lifted the BPM out and was like, "Did you pay for that, did you?" And I was like, "Oh shit, oh I forgot, oh I'm really sorry, I forgot." And he knew fine rightly, and he just goes, "I'll be reporting this to the principal," and took the bottle of BPM away. And fuck me, I think that's the first time I can identify severe anxiety. And worse, a blessing and a curse. It was a blessing. I don't know if he reported it and they forgot to come to me, or if he just decided I'll not report and let him off this once, because he'll probably never do it again because he looked scared shitless. But I just decided, or I just, in that point, I was just so anxious. So I said it was a blessing and a curse. It was a blessing I never got caught, but it was a curse because it's kind of like if somebody says, "I'm going to punch you, but I'm not going to tell you when I'm going to punch you." So instead of like being anxious for a particular time when you're getting punched, you're anxious all the time. When am I going to get punched? I was anxious all the time. When is the principal going to come and scoop me, tell my parents that I'm a fucking thief and stole from school? Oh fuck me, I had so much anxiety. So I think ever since that, I just always was freaking out, you know. But in later years, I still didn't identify that as anxiety. I just felt scared. I never really talked about it to anybody because you don't really want to talk about that shit. And as years went on, as I reached about 18, 19, 20 years old, anytime I heard the word anxiety after that, I only heard it coupled with depression. And I always thought depression was, you know, just a certain type of person, and I never realised what it really was. I just thought it was someone who was just sad, and in my head I always said to my friends, if I was ever depressed and wanted to kill myself, I'd just go and become a bank robber instead. Fuck that, you know. But through suffering like a bit of anxiety myself in life and stuff, I've realised it's not that easy. You can't just become a bank robber and jump out of an airplane and parachute and stuff. But anyway, as time went on, most of my anxiety would have lay with failure and fucking things up, you know, and always being shouted at by, you know, my dad or a parent, or fucking stuff up with a friend, pissing a friend off, usually due to alcohol. You know, most of my problems all come down to alcohol. You know, whether that's sleeping in for a new job or not going to work, losing a job, just being a failure, fucking things up in life, and then that anxiety of being shouted at by a parent, or if it was school, a teacher telling you need to do better, you're going to get kicked out of school or something because your grades are shite. Anxiety, but I never really still knew what it was. I never really looked at it online. It's still, when I was around that age, it still wasn't really popular, talked about on the internet. Around this time, people were still downloading off, maybe not Napster, but that type of stuff. And as time went on, basically, so panic attack. I had my first ever panic attack when... So I mentioned before, I left home when I was 20 something and just decided to fuck my whole life off, and I wanted to just play music and travel. So I decided to do just that. I started busking in Belfast, making some money on the streets, and then I went to England and made money busking around England and staying on sofas of old friends from university and drinking every day, going out busking, drinking 2 litres of water, playing some music, making a few quid, booking a hostel, going out drinking, meeting some girls, meeting some lads, having a party, waking up the next morning with a hangover and repeating the whole thing again. And it was fucking brilliant. I loved it. It was so good at the start, but I couldn't do that shit forever. It started catching up with me. And anybody who drinks a lot knows that anxiety will catch up with you very, very fast whenever you're drinking a lot. And people who don't even drink too much, maybe only drink at the weekends, it still starts catching up with you with age. And that's my theory of why, you know, hangovers get worse with age. You know, the anxiety increases. It's not even the physical part of it. Physical part gets worse as well, I think. You know, I used to never throw up with a hangover, and now I'm just constantly sick if I have a drink the night before. But I was travelling through England. I'd went to like Norwich and Birmingham, Scotland, Norwich, Birmingham, Liverpool, Manchester, and then eventually ended up in London. So the plan was to go from London to Canterbury, and I was living on the bread line. Like, if I booked a bus, I needed that bus to be there because I was going to the next city with no money, maybe 2 quid to get a bottle of water, because all I really needed was full charge in my battery for my amplifier. And at this time I didn't even have an amplifier, that's right. So it was just a guitar and a bag of clothes. So all I needed really to make money was water and some and good weather, you know. And at the time it was, I think it was September, October time, you know, so it wasn't even great weather in England. And around this time, sorry, 1 second, I'm going to just move the mouse on my computer. I need to move the mouse just to stop it going into standby mode. So I got to London. I was going from Birmingham to Canterbury. Canterbury's at the very bottom of England, the bottom right of it, the southeast of it, next to London. It's about an hour and a bit away from London. And Birmingham, as I'm sure you know, is in the Midlands. And I was getting 2 buses. I was getting I think I was getting a mega bus from Birmingham to London, and then like an hour and a half, 2 hours later, I was getting a nationwide express from London to Canterbury. And I had everything booked, and I had about 5 quid in my pocket, and I just got on the bus and went to London. And the next thing, I think it was a weekend or something, I had a friend to stay with in Canterbury, so all I had to do is get there, can stay in his house, eat something, wake up the next day, go busking. I've got money again. But it was the weekend. I didn't know much about traffic in London, but holy fucking shit, I think it was a Friday night or something like that, and the traffic coming in, my bus was just non-existent for movement. It just wasn't moving, and I'm just sitting on that bus, just getting really a little bit anxious at the start, you know, saying, I'm sure the bus will probably be a bit late, but it wouldn't be like 2 hours late. It'll only be like half an hour late maximum. And then half an hour passed, I'm getting really anxious. The phone charger port on the megabus isn't working because they're fucking cheap bastards. But phone's running out of battery. I'm freaking out about not catching the next bus. I need the battery in my phone because the ticket's on the phone. And then, yeah, I finally get there, and I've missed the fucking bus by it was like 2 hours late or something like that. I can't remember the exact time. But holy fuck, I was just like, shit, I don't know what to do. And then I texted my friend. I think I texted my friend saying if I could, get money or something to get another bus. I think I went to National Express to say to the woman, hey, my bus was in late, so can you just put me in the next bus? And I thought London would be like Ireland, where I can just talk my way around getting in the next bus, and the lovely woman behind the till will say, surely, no problem. Poor you missed your bus. Don't worry, just jump on the next bus. But fuck no, she was like, no, you don't have your bus ticket. You missed the last bus. Was your last bus with Nationwide Express? And I was like, no, it was Megabus. She was like, sorry, nothing I can do for you, mate. And I was like, fuck, well that sucks. So I went outside. I think my phone died at this point, and I went outside and I was like, fuck, right, I just need a cigarette to calm me down, and then I'll maybe busk for a while in London. But this was like, I think it was like 8 o'clock at night or something like that there. And I went outside. I said, I'll ask a man for a cigarette, and then I'll busk and I'll make the money, and then I'll get in the bus and I'll get to Canterbury, and when I get there I'll figure out how to contact my friend to figure out where I'm going. So I went outside, I went up, I had no cigarettes, and I just seen a man smoking, and I went up to him and I said, hey, excuse me man, could I possibly have a cigarette please? And he just said, fuck off mate. Just went, fuck off mate. And I just went, oh no. And then I just felt this shame. By the way, I'm exceedingly fucking hungover at this point as well. I'd been drinking the day before. I had no drink in my system on that particular day. And I just went and sat at the wall, and I felt really shaky. I think I was hungry as well. So I'm hungry, I'm anxious, and fucking my heart rate is racing, and I started feeling, tight in the chest, and felt like no matter how much air I breathed in, it wasn't like filling my lungs and wasn't making me feel, I wasn't getting the oxygen wasn't getting into my blood system or something, and I was just like, oh fuck. So I started trying to breathe faster, and then I just felt like I just couldn't breathe, and I had like a full-on panic attack. I didn't know I was having a panic attack, so I thought, shit, this is it, Darryl, you've been breathing, or you've been drinking too much, not eating properly, and you're fucked. This is you fucked, you're gonna like pass out here and wake up in hospital or something, or not wake up at all. And just thoughts going through my head, racing. What am I going to do? How am I going to get to Canterbury? Am I going to have to sleep rough? If I sleep rough, I'll probably get stabbed in London. There's knife crimes pretty high in London. I'll probably get knifed. I'll lose my guitar. I'll end up a bum. I'll have to beg for change on the street, and then eventually I'll have to go home, and I'll have to rob a shop, and then I'll get fucking in jail. And just all these thoughts going round and round, crazy thoughts. Excuse me. And then I basically sat down, still had no idea what anxiety was. This is me just thinking I'm fucking dying or something. And there was nothing in my pockets except a guitar plectrum and a piece of paper, and it was song lyrics for a song I was learning. And I just said, I'll read through these lyrics just to take my mind off something, because I felt like everyone was looking at me at this point outside Victoria Station. And I just said, I'll sit down and collect myself and just read through these lyrics. And in hindsight, that was a really good idea. I didn't know that that was a good idea, but it was. Just to take my mind off, to concentrate on something and not, jump from thought to thought. And I started reading through the lyrics. It was a song called The Ballad of John and Yoko, written by John Lennon. Goes, going in the dock in Vienna, trying to get to London or France. And even those first lyrics made me think, you know, fuck it, you know, Darryl, you're traveling, you know, this is traveling. And, you know, well, that moment wasn't fun, but it will be fun. And then I read on through the lyrics. I can't remember how they go offhand. And then there was one bit, and it said, I can't remember exactly what it says at the end, but I'll post it as a quote on my Facebook. But it says, "Oh boy, when you die, you don't take nothing but your soul," or something like that. And then I realised how, in that moment, I just had a moment of clarity where I realised how unimportant, if I have to sleep rough for a night, it's not that big of a deal. Okay, it might be, you might have to sleep with one eye open, you might have to sleep in an uncomfortable spot, but in the end, it's only time. I only have to deal with time. And if I lose the guitar, if someone robs the guitar, I could always figure it out. I'm not stupid. Like, I can always figure a way. There's always a way around everything. Everything can be overcome, you know, unless you're terminally ill, and then you have to accept that it can't be overcome or something. But there's a morbid thought. But I just realized in that moment, it's not, you can do this, you know, you can do this. Just put the thoughts out of your head and just plow on through. And that's what I did. I got up, I really, really wanted a cigarette, and I just said, well, when I used to work in a call centre, I would call 300 people a day, and out of those 300, 100 would talk to me. Out of those 100 that would talk to me, 3 would buy my BT broadband, or whatever I was selling. So the law of averages works. So if I ask fucking 10 people for a cigarette, and 9 people tell me to fuck off, at least I'll get 1 cigarette. At least that's what it said. So I asked somebody for a cigarette, and the next person gave me a cigarette. That gave me a little bit of hope. I smoked the cigarette, felt a little bit better, and then said, right, same thing applies. I'm going to go and ask somebody if I can charge my phone in a shop. So I went into, I think I went to the Nationwide Express woman again and asked her to charge, and she said no, and that they can't do that. And then I felt a little bit disheartened, but then I said, law of averages, I'll fucking just ask as many fucking shops as possible. And then I can't even remember where I asked, but I went into a shop or something, and there was a nice person, just was really nice, because there's nice people in the world. I was like, no problem at all, no problem. I was like, thank God. Got the phone charged, got in touch with somebody, and at this point I didn't have a debit card because I think I'd broken my debit card, or can't remember if I lost it or if I threw it away, just trying to be a free person, like living off the grid. Eventually I had to get a credit card because I realised that it's really important for travelling and getting buses places. But I got in touch with a friend, I can't remember if it was my friend in Birmingham or my friend in Canterbury, but somebody bought me a ticket, and then I took that, I got the bus, I was able to contact my friend in Canterbury, made it to Canterbury very late at night, and got up the next day, went busking, made a load of money, and the journey went on. But that was my first experience with anxiety properly. So I didn't recognise even it was anxiety at that point. I realised it was anxiety later on. But the moral of that story was I took my mind off it and realised in time it'll get better. This feeling will not be forever. So one thing I do now, I don't really put myself in a situation that extreme anymore, but I still get pretty anxious at the stupidest of things. I got anxious at a funeral the other day because I didn't know anybody, and I didn't know whether to say sorry for your loss or what's the crack. I get anxious in a shop, in a queue, when I'm waiting to get served, and or in a traffic jam. I get anxious all the time, maybe 20 times a day. And normally I just overcome the thought, by just going, oh, you're feeling anxious right now, okay, well, don't worry about it, blah blah blah. But in a severe moment of anxiety now, if I'm feeling really bad, what I'd suggest for you to do, if you don't have tools already, is something that helps me. And we've all heard of breathing exercises, but this totally fucking works. What I do is go to a toilet. You can always find a fucking toilet, whether it's a public bathroom or a nice proper bathroom with a lock on it and stuff. Find a bathroom. You're in your moment. You're feeling anxious. You're like, fuck me, I can't cope. I'm going to say something stupid. I'm going to faint. I'm feeling panicky. Find a bathroom. Step 1. Go into the bathroom. Put your phone on airplane mode so that you don't anxiously go to the phone to deal with the problem, because there'll be more anxiety lying in the phone. Maybe your anxiety's to do with the phone. Maybe somebody sent you a message or something. Put the phone in airplane mode. Put it in your pocket. And for that moment, you're sitting on the toilet. I generally take my trousers down, so if I need to poo, I'll have a poo. Take your trousers down. You don't need to take your trousers down. You can sit on top of the toilet, obviously. By the way, I'm a weird cunt sometimes, but there's method in my madness. So sit in the toilet and do this little simple breathing exercise. And this breathing exercise works in 2 ways for me. Number 1, it's all about taking your attention off on the bad shit. And number 2, it actually has, this particular breathing exercise has a physiological reasoning behind how it calms you down. Something to do with stimulating, I don't even know, I'm not even going to talk as if I know the biology of it. Something to do with the vagus nerve, something to do with blood flowing, I don't know. But it calms you down, that's all you need to know. So, it's very simple. You can do it any way you want, but the whole reasoning behind it is you breathe out for longer than you breathe in. So an easy way to do it, and you can change this from 4 seconds to 3 seconds to whatever suits you, but say you breathe out for double the amount of time you breathe in. So say 4 seconds. So you breathe in for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you breathe out for 8 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you repeat it again. And do it like 5, 10 times, whatever. And for me, I like to, you've all heard of a mantra. I like to add a few words into it so that I concentrate on the words, because it helps me further not think of more thoughts. So, you know, an easy thing, you can just make up your own thing as long as it's 4 words or 4 syllables. One would be, I am doing grand. I am doing grand. Well, that's 5 syllables, but I say doing like doing. So doing. I am doing grand. So you go, I am doing grand. I am doing grand. I am doing grand. So you say it twice when you're breathing out. But you can do it any way you want. Just count. I'm fucking nuts. I talk crazy talk, but just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the way out. And if you do that 5, 10 times, phone's in airplane mode, nothing disturbing you, it should hopefully calm you down. When you get out, just realise you might still feel a bit bad, but the feeling's not going to last forever, and just try to go do something else. If you can remove yourself from the situation that's giving you anxiety, if you're able to identify it, then by all means do that. Have a little glass of water or something. Don't knack it, just take a few sips, just to help your mouth not be as dry. And that's one wee method I use for tackling anxiety. I talked about that for ages. Fuck, I could do a 4-hour podcast if I wanted, but I'll keep it 1 hour, trying not to waffle too much. So I'll quickly maybe talk 10 minutes about this ayahuasca retreat I'm going to do. I wouldn't suggest you do it or don't do it because I haven't done it before, but ayahuasca in a nutshell is it comes from like a plant in the Amazon jungle, I think, and it's seen as a medicine. Some people see it as it is a drug. It's a psychedelic drug, and can be similar to LSD or acid or magic mushrooms or something like that. But it's seen, I think a psychoactive, what's the word? drugs that make you trip out are starting to be used more and more, you know, to treat things like anxiety, depression, addiction, PTSD. And I've been watching a ton of documentaries on that shit recently. And I think, you know, in the next 10, 20 years, that shit's going to be available as something in the pharmaceutical industry, you know. But ayahuasca, for years, it's becoming really popular in the Western world now. Sorry about that. And now you can do it in Ireland. So I won't be giving details about any of that because it is illegal. But I'm going to do it in June and I can't fucking wait. And what it does is, apparently, so you go to a little ceremony. So I've taken many tripping out drugs. Why is my vocabulary so fucked? I'm trying to think of the words for drugs that make you trip out, and it's not psychoactive. It's a word I've probably said it already today. My head's away. Anyway, drugs that make you trip out. I've taken many of them in the past. I've taken LSD, I've smoked DMT, I've taken magic mushrooms a good few times, but I've done them as a party drug, you know. Every time I've done them, I've been drunk, and I'm just doing it for something that's even crazier than being drunk, and just the experience, you know. But there is ways of doing these drugs to benefit you, so you can start actually, you know, gaining insight to your own personal growth and the trauma that you've lived in your life. And I don't fully understand it yet, and I find it hard to put into words, but I do know that so many people have found it beneficial, and a very small amount of people, you know, have had you know, ended up in serious trouble with it, you know, ended up going fully loop the loop and ended up in a mental house, or going, you know, ended up, I think somebody's maybe died from it before. But, you know, these are things you hear that scare you. You know, more people die from fucking walking across the road. In terms of ayahuasca, the people that get in trouble from it are usually people that have underlying health conditions, like mental conditions, like schizophrenia and things like that there. And maybe that's why it's made them, you know, lose their minds a little bit more. But I think I'll be grand, you know. I've done plenty of crazy shit before. I think this is the mother of all craziness, this one. But it's also seen as a really healing thing. And part of the reason is how you do it. So you eat like raw vegan food. You're advised to not drink alcohol for a week before you go. And you have a little ceremony. So you do it 3 nights in a row. So I'm going there 4 days. On the first day you get there, you settle in, and then you do the ceremony. You drink the ayahuasca. They make it whatever way they make it, and it's this apparently black, disgusting liquid, and you drink it, and then within 20 minutes to an hour you start vomiting like fuck. A lot of people get diarrhea as well, and that's your body just getting rid of loads of shit. Actual shit. And a lot of you listening to this have probably heard of it before, so you know what I'm talking about. And a lot of people are probably listening going, what the fuck, why would you pay crazy money to go do that? But after that happens, after the shitting and the vomiting, you start visualizing, you go to the ayahuasca world, and a lot of people report seeing spiritual entities, seeing a spiritual guide, seeing all these shapes and figures, and really having crazy auditory and visual like hallucinations, and just going fully crazy, but not going crazy, because a lot of people report back that they were able to go back to traumas that happened in their lives, and those traumas that were like maybe repressed, and then they were able to actually process the traumas, and it helped them process it, and as a result of that they were able to break out of habits that are fucking up their lives today. And that's why I'm doing it, you know. I'm hoping to have a better view of what my true inner self, who I really am. That's part of the reason I'm doing the podcast as well. You know, I'm also going to therapy, as I said, attending AA meetings, and this is just another thing that I want to do to hopefully break free from some of the patterns that I'm stuck in today, and that will help me excel in personal growth, you know. And if I don't do that, then at least it's another experience that I've always wanted to do, something I'll tick off the bucket list, and at the very least I'll have a fucking insane experience to share with you on a podcast. I might need to make that podcast 2 hours, but who knows. So without talking too much about that, that's in another 5 weeks or so. By the time this podcast is released, I'll be doing that 2 weeks. So if when you're listening to this right now, I'll be doing it in 2 weeks after, unless you're listening to it in the future or whatever. But anyway, I'm getting close to wrapping it up. But my goal for next week, so I told you about the job, and I just decided in the job I can make that amount of money I was going to be making doing minimum wage by just applying myself in some of the stuff I was talking in the third podcast, in just hustling, you know. So I've put myself out there to teach some guitar lessons. I'm going to teach 8 people, and I'm also going to maybe put on an open mic night and just do anything I can to get some extra money in, which I need to do things I want to do. So I've written down some ideas here that I can suggest to you. So my goal basically is, I've set a cash goal. I'm not going to say what the cash goal is, but I've set a cash goal of how much money I want to make every week, so that I don't need to get a job. And yeah, so that's my goal for next week. And also I'm going to go hardcore at the objectives in the next week, because I've really let myself down today, and I'm going to move on from that and really, in fact, after this podcast, I can feel my mouth getting dry with this coffee. I'm going to go and drink 2 litres of water straight away and make my bed. But if you want to follow doing the daily objectives, I would say you can either come up with an idea. It doesn't have to be something massive. You can tell yourself, I'm going to make £20 by next week by doing something above and beyond my job or whatever you do. And a good way to get ideas now, which is unreal, is, you've all heard of ChatGPT. If you just go to Google and type in ChatGPT, you can use it for free. There's a ton of websites you can use it, and it's basically an AI. It's basically talking to a computer, and it's really fucking smart. It's crazy, and you can just ask it to do anything for you, really. I would say ask it. Say your name's John, right? And you just write, "Hi ChatGPT, my name is John. I am good at playing soccer. I'm quite good at doing this. I'm good at that. I'm not too good at this. I like talking to people. I don't have interpersonal skills." Basically write out what you're good at, what you're not good at, and then say, ChatGPT, give me 30 ideas of a small hustling business idea that I can do today, and press enter, and it'll give you loads of ideas to brainstorm. Another way to get ideas is go on that website I told you about before, Fiverr.com. It's Fiverr with 2 R's, Fiverr, and there's loads of people hosting what they're doing, what they can do for you on that website, and you can just see, fuck, well, I could do that, and then you could list yourself doing the same as somebody else is doing. Make it a bit cheaper, or make it the same price or more expensive, and post your work of something that you can do. And I mean, it can be anything. For me, I'm taking the easy way out because I really need money, and I'm just doing something this week that I know I can do easily, which is teach guitar, because I've done it before, and that's easy for me, but it might be easy for you. But like, even if you have an interest in cooking, even if you have just an interest in cooking and you're not even good at it, go on fucking TikTok, write in recipe for a cake, find a cake recipe, bake a cake, eat it. Is it nice? If it's good, fucking right, do it. Make a video of doing it, make a TikTok video of doing it, put it out there and say you're selling cakes, and make 3 cakes and say you're going to sell those cakes. Work out how much money it costs you to make the cake, work out how much time it costs you to bake the cake, which should probably only take, I don't know, you bake a cake in like an hour, and just price it and say I'm selling these 3 cakes. One thing for every business idea to help it sell is have a unique selling point. So if you bake a cake, you could write a crazy message on the cake. You could write, enjoy your fucking cake. That's quirky. Somebody will buy that. I'd buy that cake if it said enjoy your fucking cake. You know, you would buy that for your mate as a joke if you get on with your mate that sort of way, and your mate would laugh his head off with a birthday cake that says that, you know. But you could bake a cake. If you have a skill, you know, mine would be music, so I can teach music. But if you're good at fucking soccer, advertise yourself teaching a kid to learn soccer, or even an adult who wants to get better at soccer. If you're good at art, you could take an art class. You could show people. If you're good at photography, you could take a photography class. Even if you're really good at like playing Warzone on the Xbox or a particular game, there is somebody out there on the internet that is shit at that game and will pay 15-20 quid for a lesson on how to get better at that game. If you're good at art as well, you could run an event. You could run, I see 1 or 2 people on Facebook that are recently doing cool little art classes and combining them with, you know, alcohol. So it's like an evening away with, you know, I'll not use art because I know there's some people I know doing that, but say it's baking a cake again. You could run a baking a cake with drink. You know I'm quite anti-drink because I'm not drinking anymore. I'm not anti-drink, it just doesn't agree with me. But in terms of an event, if you're running an event and you want to get people there, a lot of people will be excited by the idea of drinking at it, because people are getting bored going to the same old fucking pubs week after week and seeing the same old musicians like me playing the same old fucking songs. But I shouldn't say that, that's a bad idea. But anyway, you could say an evening with beer and cake, and you could have it as an all men's class, an all women's class. You could have it a mixed thing where people get to meet people. You could have it as a single bake-off where single people go to bake cakes together and you partner them up. You know, you could think of anything that could make people want to do it, and then just charge people appropriately and see if it takes off. If it doesn't take off, at least you fucking tried. Oh, sorry, computer went in standby. So if it didn't take off, at least you fucking tried, and you can move on to the next idea. So if you're looking to stick up with my daily challenges, think of a way you can make 20 quid by next week, and by doing anything extra. And it could be selling something. You could even buy and sell something. You could find something, like I bought another one of these microphones today, and these microphones cost like £350 brand new. I bought this one for like £250, and I just bought a new one today for £190. But even beyond that, there was a guy selling one for £130. So you could just get anything. It doesn't need to be as expensive as this microphone. But if you just go on Facebook Marketplace and find something that looks way cheaper than it should be careful of scams. Always I would advise to buying something in person as opposed to posting it. If you do have to post it, check the person's profile out, make sure they've got more than 100 friends and they've had a profile for a while, that they're not a scammer, and use PayPal as well, you know, keep yourself safe. But anyways, you can buy something for cheap. I'm looking around the room here trying to see something. You could buy a fucking hot water bottle for £1 and sell it for 10 quid. You know what I mean? Just buy anything and post it again and sell it. You know yourself, just research it. You can see how expensive everything's being. Pick an item in your house that you think somebody would want to buy or you'd want to buy. Check it out in Facebook Marketplace. Look at all the prices and decide for yourself what the average price is. Say the average price is £30 and someone's selling one for £15. Buy the £15 one. When you message them, say, would you take a tenner for it? Try and get it for a tenner. Try and get it for 12 quid. Buy it, list it again, and try and sell it for 30 quid. And there you go, you've just made money. And if you're not up for doing that, if you don't have money for buying and selling, if you don't think you have a skill, I would suggest educate yourself in something instead. Take an online class. There's so many free online classes out there, or go on YouTube. Find something you enjoy that you would love to do and make money doing it. And it doesn't need to be all or nothing. You can just be doing your full-time job if you're working full-time, and set yourself 1 hour even a week to say, I'll focus 1 hour on this task. And that 1 hour could be, I'll take it back to baking cakes, because I could go off talking about loads of shit if I don't keep it simple. Baking cakes. I don't know how to bake cakes. This week I'm going to spend an hour learning about 3 different types of cake I could bake. Get a notepad, write down the ingredients, how you bake it, save the TikTok video or the Facebook reel or whatever, and then the next week I'll bake a cake. The week after I'll bake the other cake and try to sell your cakes. You know, you could do an online course on baking cakes, or an online course on how to cook the best steak. One thing that was popular over COVID was people were doing cheese boards. You know, you just buy all the different cheeses in bulk out of the supermarket, add some olives, add some luxurious fruit, and put it on a sexy board, advertise the price. You make 10 quid profit out of it, and it only took you 10 minutes to make the board. You know what I mean? So if you'd like to stick to doing the daily objectives, you want to be drinking your 2 litres of water a day, doing your 10 minutes of meditation, making your fucking bed in the morning, throwing that phone the fuck away every time you're aware that you're on it. And sorry for cursing, this is me talking to myself to try and instill some strength. Please don't think I'm preaching at you or anything. And now do something, either to learn a new skill, to grow, or sell something, or teach somebody something. Try to make yourself set yourself a small target to make an extra 20 quid by next week, and then the week after you could try and make 30 quid if you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, don't do it. It's fine. You don't have to do all these things if they don't apply to you, if they don't think they'll benefit from you. If you're doing them all, please let me know in the comments. Please follow the page Get the Finger Out on Facebook, Get the Finger Out on TikTok and Instagram. Although at the moment I'm just really using Facebook and Instagram. I'll try to break into TikTok when I get the podcast out, start making videos and stuff. You can send me an email if you'd like to privately send an email. Let me know what you think of the podcast. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, give me a fucking shout. If you've overcome something, whether it's anxiety, overcome a massive life challenge, if you're doing really well for yourself and used to do pretty shit for yourself, please get in touch. I'd love to hear your story. We can do the podcast in person, we can do them over Zoom. And what else do I need to let you know? Yeah, please just subscribe the page. Please leave a comment, like on Apple, like on Spotify. And most of all, tell somebody about this podcast if you think they'd benefit from it. If you have a friend who thinks they're trying to get their shit together like I am, it doesn't need to be about alcohol. It can just be they're just in a rut. They're working a shit job they don't like, and they're stuck and bored or anxious, depressed about life, you know. Just slight disclaimer about the anxiety stuff. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm just going by my own experience and sharing my own shit. And I think that's everything. Next week will be the last podcast I do before I put them all out, edit them all and put them out. Next week will be a surprise. I don't know what I'll talk about next week yet. I have loads of ideas of and I'll just finish on my fucking ice bath didn't come, and I sending them emails, nobody got back to me, and then I threatened them with a solicitor, even though I was just going to let it go, actually, because solicitor would cost more money. But they got in touch just before the podcast. The ice bath is coming, so hopefully by next week I will have started the ice baths. Maybe that's what I'll talk about for a bit of next week, about the ice baths, and I'll post some videos on social media with me freezing my balls off and trying to do it. So I'll see you next week. Go and enjoy yourselves and live the dream. Good luck.
I need to get this finger out of my hole. I've been walking the road too damn long. I'm a crippled and a riddle with doubt. I need to get the finger out.